Today, on Down to Earth, we take you to the Barrier Break office to meet its founder, Shilpi Kapoor. Barrier Break aims to make access to technology easier for people with disabilities. It tests various applications and sites as well as hardware to see if they are disable friendly. The company also develops sites and apps for the government that can be used by disabled people and sells products that help the disabled to access these very sites. And above all that, a majority of the employees at Barrier Break are from the disabled community and manage to come together beautifully as a fully functional team that makes this vision possible. Shilpi, a systems engineer, used to work for an American technology firm. Her supervisor in America was paraplegic, paralyzed from the neck down, and it was 2 years before Shilpi even found out. This is what inspired her to provide assistive technologies for the disabled. A bold step in a country where even basic requirements for the disabled community are seen as a luxury rather than a necessity. Let's go meet Shilpi Kapoor. So Shilpi, this is your office, and I'm sure it's changed a lot since when you first started out. Tell us the story, tell us how it began. I mean, what was the idea behind it? And your first days when you were out there deciding this is what you want to do. What were the kind of feelings you were going through at that point of time?
Well, when we started off, the idea was really to include people with disabilities by ensuring that they would get the right of doing something within society where they could be a part of the society, as well as they could provide services that other corporates or businesses could use. The biggest challenge was people with disabilities were never included in society. People didn't think they wanted to talk about them. People didn't want to provide services to them. People didn't want to provide employment to them. So my initial thoughts were, can I really make a business out of this? Can it go from being a charity, as disability generally is, to actually being a business model?
And what were you doing at that time? You were working?
I was working for an American firm,
right,
doing security of servers.
So suddenly, did you just wake up one day and be like, okay, I'm going to give all this up, go ahead? And I know you had a colleague who was disabled as well, and that prompted you to think about this, but it must have taken a lot to actually take that decision.
It was actually very easy.
Really?
For me, it came as just something I wanted to do from the first day I saw it. So the first time I saw a visually impaired person using a computer, I realized this is what I wanted to do. Right? I didn't realize the challenges that would come on. So sometimes you can say you can walk in blind, and that's the best way to walk in, and that's how I kind of walked in. Right? So I didn't realize what it would take. So if you see our first business plan, it was very, optimistic. It was very positive, and it didn't work.
Tell us about that. I mean, when you made your first business plan, some of the things that you thought would be easier or that weren't. When you first went out looking for perhaps a place to set up your office or set up the venture, some of the things you encountered in your early days.
Well, the idea really started with us being a testing house, whereby we'd employ people with disabilities who would test products and services for IT companies. The first shock for me was no IT company wanted to work with us. So we knocked on everybody's doors, and everybody said, but disability, we don't look at this angle of our technology. So that was a major nightmare. But by then we had already raised money. We'd already got an investor called Avishkar. Right? So for us it was a major challenge to understand how would we take this venture forward. What would be our next steps, right? So in our head, it was perfect that the IT industry in India would require the service. But the IT industry in India decided they didn't want the service, right? So that was a huge problem. The next was finding people. So it is easy to say that you'll start a company with disabled people, but do they have the right skill set? Do you have to provide them training? Where do you need, what is the kind of infrastructure you need to provide them the kind of support that they require? So starting off from there was another, it was a walk down a path that I had no clue about, right? And because Barrier Break wanted to work across disabilities, we didn't want to work on any one disability. So the challenge again came, how are we going to integrate all of these different disabilities together and make this viable? So again, no answers. It was walk ahead, and as you go down the road, you find the next answer, and you find a solution.
Where did some of those answers come from? Just through word of mouth, through talking to people, any other experts in the field? How did you sort of find some of these answers?
So I was fortunate. I went to the UK, I went to the US, saw what they were doing in those places, learned from them, came back. So I had then realized that this was something I had to learn because India was so culturally different. It was a mindset issue. So then realized that I just had to take one step at a time, which is getting my own answers. But what I did effectively was put a group of people around me who could help, mentor, advise, give new ideas to. So including like our venture capitalist board, right, was somebody that you could go to advise, for advice for and get advice.
The products that Barrier Break sells are largely imported from overseas.
It can be difficult for an individual with hearing loss to pinpoint the microphone
and naturally use very expensive technology. It's a tough market to crack. Convincing corporates, for instance, that their disabled employees need these devices. Another area that Shilpi has started to look at are schools. And students like these at St. Xavier's in Mumbai are seeing a whole new world.
My name is Tilak Prasad Joshi and I am a student of St. Xavier's College. Currently I am attending a Dolphin Supernova workshop organized by Barrier Break Technologies. In this workshop I have learned many things which was not possible for me in past. I used to find very difficult working with computers, applications. But now with the help of this Dolphin Supernova workshop, I can create my own properly structured document and format them.
What we do is we have different rates for non-profits, we have different rates for corporates, we have different rates for international markets, and very often all of that helps us subsidize wherever we really need to subsidize.
In India in particular, you faced the mindset that people didn't actually feel that it was important, first of all. But secondly, did you also encounter people actually wondering why you're charging for some of these services? Because they might have had the mindset that, hey, this should be something done for charity.
Well, that's the mindset we get even today. Right. Everybody will always ask us, so are you a charity? Is this for free? So the challenge is yet there. That challenge has not moved. The only thing that's happened is we've realized that until we don't charge for the service, people will not value this service. When you do something under charity, you'll do it once. So if you make your website for the first time and you make it disabled friendly, you'll do it the first time. But it's an ongoing effort because you're updating your website regularly. You need to continue to see that it is disabled friendly. So for that to happen, they have to realize that there is an investment. It doesn't come without a cost. Nothing does. Even when, I always tell people, even if you look at charity, somebody is funding that charity. It's not that charity is just happening out of nowhere. Right? But till disability does not take the thought of going from charity to a business model, to a return on investment, why would the corporates do this? Right? So the shift has to come from us, right? And sometimes it's very difficult for us to stand strong and just say, but there is a charge associated to do this. Even, whether you'd like to or not, you would have to pay for this service. Right? And that is very difficult to do in a country like India.
It's an exciting space to be in. I mean, talking purely as someone who's in the technology field, it must be exciting for you because, as you said, a lot of innovation is required. And with technology where it's at right now, the combination of the two must lead to a world of possibilities.
It does. And that's the possibility that the disabled need. Because if you can take their ability and convert it into and enhance it and empower them with it, that's the ideal, and I think that's where technology can make a clear difference. So if you look at, I'll just give you a small example of a mobile phone, right? So all of them now have a lot of touch, but everybody says, how will a blind person use something which is touch, right? But they can, and they do so beautifully. But how do we integrate that they can now use the applications that are built on those platforms, right? So it's an interesting time to be in, and technology will hopefully see this, through.